The story begins when our main protagonist, called Itsuki, learns that his cousin named Mahiru is pregnant. However, all of a sudden they are magically sucked into another world. Once there, Mahiru explains she had no relations with any man, revealing her case to be one of immaculate conception. As a crest develops on Mahiru and Itsuki, a giant monster attacks. Itsuki manifests a katana and cuts down the monster, allowing them to escape. Outside they meet a cheeky flying red panda named Mana and a man named Narcissus. They are led into the world of Granvania and meet with the king, named Shangri-La, who asks them to help save their world. He explains that every 10 years, those known as visitors arrive bearing the 12 marks of the constellation. Mahiru then passes out and is rushed to the clinic. However, Mana reassures Itsuki that the two can meet tomorrow. The next day, Itsuki awakens to find himself chained in bed. He meets Dr. Rion, who explains that his body has marks of the 12 constellations, and it is a visitor's duty to enter the labyrinth and cleanse it of impurities which are causing chaos in Granvania. He must destroy the monsters within and repair the Star Wards. 12 constellation maidens will aid him on his journey, and Mahiru, who is revealed to be the maiden of Virgo, is one of those girls. Rion explains that a maiden expels impurities when she is chosen, and these symptoms are similar to those of pregnancy. Mahiru is relieved that she isn't pregnant. However, Mana says maidens have another duty, which is to bear star children in a process known as the love ritual. Rion has him and Mahiru perform the ritual, and for the sake of their mission the two lovingly embrace. Itsuki and Mahiru embrace, and out pops the star child Virgo. The two are surprised, and Rion explains that the love ritual is a simple physical contact affair. The following day, Itsuki and Mahiru meet the other constellation maidens. Ari, a church sister and maiden of Aries; Tora, a delivery girl and maiden of Taurus; Lyris, a fortune teller whose personality changes when you bonk her, she's the maiden of Gemini; Ruka, a strange girl who acts out popular anime tropes and is the maiden of Cancer; Femirina, an arrogant rich girl and maiden of Leo; Mireille, a magic researcher and maiden of Libra; Sue, a rancher and maiden of Sagittarius; Phelan, an adventurer and maiden of Capricorn; Colette, who is a baker and maiden of Aquarius; and finally Yuzuha, a shy artist and maiden of Pisces. Rion serves as the maiden of Scorpio and Mahiru the maiden of Virgo. Mana whispers to Itsuki that he will have to perform the love ritual with all the girls, so she gives him a special love manual. A few days later they hold a small welcoming party. Itsuki notices that Ruka is missing and finds her picking flowers for the orphanage she works at. After she is unable to read his mind, Ruka leaves. Afterwards, a drunken Mahiru asks him if he remembers a promise he made 10 years ago, but he doesn't. Mahiru says she is relieved, however she later looks saddened while looking at a stuffed doll. Later, Mana reminds him to make more star children as the labyrinth is dangerous. Itsuki drops by the foster home to visit Virgo and meets Alfie the trainer. Afterwards he visits Ruka so that the two can perform the love ritual. She asks him if he has anything to ease the mood, and he replies, "We'll come together." The next day, Itsuki receives the Star Wards from Shangri-La, crystals made by the constellation maidens to absorb impurities within the labyrinth. He proceeds inside with Virgo, Cancer, and Mana. Mana explains that the labyrinth is divided into 12 floors, each one dedicated to a constellation and guarded by a labyrinth lord. When Virgo and Cancer are easily defeated, Itsuki realizes he needs to make more children. Itsuki is relieved to see Virgo and Cancer alive, having been protected by the holy Matryoshka dolls. However, their second attempt at the labyrinth fails. To power up, Narcissus suggests Itsuki perform a double love ritual which no visitor has ever attempted. The next day, Mana sends Itsuki and Mahiru to a hot spring. When Mahiru sees Itsuki's wounds from training, she is concerned about his well-being. He reassures that he will survive and always protect her. But thinking about their love ritual causes her to pass out and she loses her keychain. However, Itsuki manages to find it and returns it, finally remembering their promise to always stay together. Mana invites them to her love carriage, but Mahiru leers at them and leaves. The following day, Itsuki visits Rion, and upon learning that he plans to perform a double love ritual, she asks to be one of the maidens so she can properly monitor him. With Mahiru still mad at him and Ruka nowhere to be found, Itsuki passes by a bar and sees Phelan working as a waitress and entertainer. Itsuki mentions the love ritual and her personality sours. She dislikes her role as a maiden, which forces her to stay in one place. Using the book Mana gave him, Itsuki bites her ear and promises to take her to places she's never seen before. That evening, Itsuki performs the dual love ritual with Rion and Phelan, though he is overstimulated at first. He manages to regain his composure and the ritual goes off without a hitch. Two new star children are born, Capri and Scorpy. When Mana peeks inside, she sees Rion and Phelan basking in the afterglow. With this newfound strength, Itsuki clears the first floor of the labyrinth and restores the Star Ward. However, upon exiting, they hear a blood-curdling growl. Itsuki stumbles into a church and meets Ari, but when duty calls, Itsuki promises to come back. The next day, Itsuki sees Yuzuha unable to buy bread, so later he pays her a visit, bringing some with him which she uses as an eraser. Calling him Oni-chan, Yuzuha explains that she is an artist, painting pictures using her dreams as a muse, pointing at her coffin, although she reveals that she hasn't had a dream in a while. Itsuki invites her to eat lunch the next day with her favorite food, plain bread. Yuzuha arrives carrying her coffin newly decorated and containing her art materials. As they get up to walk, a child points at Mana, calling her outfit strange, but Yuzuha thinks this was directed at her, causing her to leave. That night she cries herself to sleep and Itsuki blames himself for bringing Yuzuha outside. Ari comforts him and reveals that Yuzuha has sleeping sickness, which causes her lifespan to shrink while asleep. This is why Yuzuha always carries a coffin, so she is always ready. Itsuki sees Mana building a coffin as an apology. He takes the coffin to see Yuzuha, inviting her to see the outside, just him, her, and their 2 coffins. The two enjoy their time together and they end the day watching constellations in the sky. The next day Yuzuha reveals that she finally had a dream. To return the favor, she performs the love ritual with Itsuki. He tells her to relax and he will take the lead. A quarter of the labyrinth has been conquered, but Itsuki needs more children. Mana sponsors a trip to the beach, however they are bothered by Seiya, who is a stalker and narcissist. At the beach, Itsuki sits next to Lilith and they watch Seiya taking selfies. Lilith says that her fortune telling is absolute and there is no way to stop Seiya. When Itsuki expresses his skepticism, it causes Lily to emerge, which is her aggressive alter ego. She then demands Itsuki try fortune telling for himself. Lilith predicts that Itsuki will soon die. However, he is nonchalant since fate can't be changed. But Lilith demonstrates you can change it as she influences Mana to turn Seiya from a narcissist into a bottom. Now that Itsuki believes, he and Lilith perform the love ritual as the only way to save his life is to have a star child. A few days later, Itsuki visits his kids. He then notices Seiya in the background and chases him away. Ari runs to a weapons shop to pick up a naginata she had made. Later, Seiya seeks refuge at Aries' church. Upon learning his secret, she divulges her own, revealing she is a huge weapons fanatic. She has Seiya pose for several photos holding the naginata, but he trips and falls on top of her. When Itsuki sees this, he almost kills Seiya on the spot, but Ari explains everything and shows him into her secret room. Itsuki admires her collection and Ari is delighted. She has him pose for Seiya, who snaps some photos. Ari is happy and Itsuki asks her if she can bear her child. At the love ritual, Ari uses her whip on a hapless Itsuki. The next day, Ari and Seiya exchange photos, revealing that the latter had been after Itsuki all along. Itsuki worries about having to court Colette, a literal child. He pays a visit to her bakery, but Colette knows he is there for the love ritual. Instead, Itsuki says he is there to help. However, the shop is dreadfully empty. Colette explains that when her grandfather was still in good health, the bakery was always full. A few of the maidens come by as do Alfie and the Star Children. However, a few goons from Lunch Packs, a brand that sells readily made bread, arrive to intimidate Colette into selling her store. But the Star Children end up bullying them until they cry and leave. Colette laments that she might have to close her bakery. When Mana tells Itsuki that Femiruna's family owns Lunch Pack, he pays her a visit. However, she refuses to close the brand, and while arguing she slips and bumps her head. Itsuki is forced to kidnap Femiruna and hide her in the stockroom of Colette's bakery. Wearing a paper bag mask, Itsuki routinely brings her baskets of bread, hoping to win her over with kindness. However, Femiruna thinks that the bread is laced with poison and she refuses to eat any. Eventually, she nearly collapses from hunger and Itsuki reveals his identity. He is concerned that Femiruna isn't taking care of herself properly, which apparently moves her, since those who showed her kindness in the past were only after her father's good graces or her money. Itsuki continues caring for Femiruna and eventually her heart opens up. Good old Stockholm Syndrome. Femiruna agrees to have his star child, with her taking the lead of course. The following day, Colette's grandfather convinces her to compete in the upcoming Holy Star Festival with his bread recipes. Meanwhile, Narcisse sees something terrifying in his research. Itsuki observes Mana writing a horror script for the Holy Star Festival. He watches the others participating. Alfie has the Star Children advertise her concert. Lilith and Lily perform a one-woman gag show. Sue sets up a petting zoo, and Yuzuha and Mahiru cooperate on their own booth. Later, Colette asks for help in baking the happiness bread, a missing recipe from her grandfather's book. They try all sorts of recipes, several of which are rather suggestive in nature. Colette remembers her grandfather saying that happiness bread is two things coupled together. After experimenting, they settle on sausage chikawa bread. Meanwhile, Mana hears out Tora's troubles with delivering letters. She refuses to run slowly as she wants to deliver letters packed with people's feelings as fast as possible. To restore her confidence as a courier and maiden, Mana helps her out. The next day, Itsuki and Colette set up shop while Yuzuha and Mahiru set up a rival lunch pack stall, explaining they were asked to buy Femiruna's father. Colette ends up selling out, but she is disheartened by lunch pack's endless supplies. Itsuki reassures her that her bread is made with love, and the pair later perform a love ritual in full costume. Later, Itsuki receives a letter and he visits a house that trains him to be a courier. Mana gives him a letter to give Tora and he finds her in a mud pit searching for a missing letter. Elsewhere, Narcissus participates in an underwear packing stall, and upon reaching the number 13 he has an epiphany and goes back to his lab. Itsuki helps Tora find the letter stuck in a tree she bumped into earlier. After Tora reads the letter addressed to her, Itsuki tags along for her remaining deliveries. At the last house, Tora gives Itsuki a letter expressing her feelings for him. He replies with a letter of his own asking her to have his child. She agrees and the two perform the love ritual. A few days later, Itsuki clears the 10th layer of the labyrinth. Mana hosts an episode of The Bachelor, with the 12 maidens competing over Itsuki's affections. She reveals that an exciting ultimate love ritual awaits the winner. The first girl is Sue, and Itsuki takes her on a date with her animals. She confides that her father was a researcher and her mother was a veterinarian. However, her parents were killed by impurities, causing her a lot of grief. Afterwards, he prepares her Bateria sushi, which Seiya explains signifies the girl makes it into the next round. Mana next sets up a group date. She splashes the contestants, Lilith, Ari, Phelan, Femiruna, Rion, and Mireille, with silky lotion to make things more interesting. The first one to reach the top platform gets a date with Itsuki. The whole thing is a total wipeout and only Mireille survives. Mireille soaks in a hot tub with Itsuki where she is surprisingly forward for her research, touching him somewhere underneath the bubbles. Afterwards, Itsuki also gives her a Bateria sushi. Eventually, it is down to just Sue and Mireille. Itsuki starts a love ritual with Sue, but Mireille uses a special concoction, heightening Sue's sensitivity and loosening her inhibitions to make her more open to a double love ritual. Eventually, they lose all sense of reason and they perform the ritual together. The next day, Alife is saddened that Itsuki will soon return home after clearing the labyrinth. However, Narcissus reveals that there is a hidden 13th dungeon which he identifies as the source of all impurities. While they work on finding the entrance, they ask Itsuki to continue his duties. Mana teases that the 13th maiden might not be a girl, but a boy, though Itsuki has no problem with that. Elsewhere, Alfie looks out the window with a forlorn look on her face. Itsuki grows conscious that the 13th maiden might be a guy. And to make matters worse, he seems to bump into Seiya wherever he goes, from the bakery to the hot springs. Itsuki begins denying the possibility, but Mana reasons that all anime have a surprise twist, and the fact that the 13th door is a forbidden door strengthens the chances of the 13th maiden being a man. Itsuki and Mana discuss the three possible candidates, Narcissus, Seiya, and Shangri-La. Seiya drops by noticing that Itsuki looks troubled. Seiya listens to his concerns and confides that he himself is merely acting the part of a playboy. Soon it develops into a steamy session and Itsuki feels like he is the one being seduced, so he runs out. They visit Narcissus, who is conducting research on the 13th labyrinth. He sympathizes with Itsuki's burdens and thanks him for all his help. He asks for help in identifying symbols which turn out to be the Kama Sutra. Itsuki has problems altering his preferences and remarks that Mana's morals seem messed up from the start. She replies that she used to be an impurity and was used by a magician to experiment on finding ways to coexist with them. When the magician died, Shangri-La, who was a former visitor, took her in. Itsuki then embraces Mana and he has a silent realization. He invites Narcissus and Seiya to have his children, and the two readily agree for the sake of Grandvania. However, it was all just a ruse put together by Mana to make Itsuki more open-minded, and it is revealed that Narcissus and Seiya were in on it. Itsuki smiles and runs along the beach with his friends, musing that there is someone out there for everybody. Itsuki tries to narrow down who the 13th maiden could be, and he immediately crosses out Mana on account of her promiscuousness. Itsuki prepares for the 12th labyrinth and Alfie prays for his safety, but she has a sad look on her face. The following day, after a rocky battle, they manage to defeat Tenators. However, nothing happens when they attempt to purify the Star Ward. Suddenly, the 13th labyrinth appears. Fortunately, its entrance hasn't opened and Shangri-La tells Itsuki to find the 13th maiden fast. Alfie is then revealed to be the 13th maiden and she attempts several roundabout ways to get Itsuki's attention, including writing his name on a piece of paper and eating it. When they all fail, she attempts to tell him herself. However, her yelling is drowned out by a wave of Seiya's fans and she watches helplessly as Itsuki walks away. Alfie cries in bed and Mana discovers she is the 13th maiden. Mana asks her why she is being so bashful about revealing her identity, and she replies that romantic encounters should be dramatic, based on a drama tape her father from Earth left behind. Itsuki should have known Alfie was the 13th girl, after all she was in the opening song. After he and Mana view the tape, he takes Alfie out on a date based on it. They return to Alfie's room, spending the night talking about their parents and Itsuki's lack thereof. Itsuki discovers Alfie's manual, revealing how much effort she has been putting into training the star children. Itsuki gives her a gift revealed to be a dress, just like the ones her favorite idols wear. The two prepare to perform the love ritual, but her stomach suddenly acts up due to the paper she ate, so they wait until the next day. After a sensual night, the 13th child is born. However, Alfie's condition drastically worsens. Shangri-La learns of the last child's birth and decides to reveal the truth. Itsuki and Mana stroll down a Christmas-themed street. While Itsuki buys some idol goods for a life, Narcissus calls him into the king's throne room. They say the 13th labyrinth is unlike the others. The only way for him to defeat the labyrinth lord is to seal it by performing the ritual of the great Star Ward, in other words, sacrifice himself. Mana overhears this and she is crestfallen. Mana tries to cheer up Itsuki, but he asks to be left alone. While sitting under a tree watching the happy families go by, Itsuki resolves to sacrifice himself, but not before buying gifts for all the constellation maidens. Itsuki goes with Mahiru on a Ferris wheel, gifting her a new keychain to replace her old one, though she insists on keeping the one from before. He reaffirms their promise to be together forever, even if it is just in her heart. Mana interrupts them as they are about to kiss, asking if she has a present too. The next day, Itsuki pays a visit to Alife, giving her the idol goods he bought her. Alfie admits that she is a star child born from a visitor and a maiden, but she no longer has her powers from before. Regardless, she is prepared to defend him with her life. Suddenly, she starts performing a variety show, gravely confusing Itsuki. That evening, Itsuki embraces Mana, giving her some candy and thanking her for all her support thus far. Even though she is an animal, they spend the night together. In the middle of the night, Mana cries that this will be the last time she sees Itsuki asleep. The next day, Itsuki mentally prepares himself to seal the 13th labyrinth. The other maidens are horrified to learn what Itsuki is about to do. However, Itsuki has other plans. He won't sacrifice himself without attempting to defeat the Lord first. He enters the 13th labyrinth to face the Lord alone, instructing Alfie to keep an eye on the star children. The maidens are told to begin the ritual, but Mahiru stops halfway, refusing to sacrifice Itsuki. However, there appears to be another way. If the visitor can truly bond with all the maidens, the power produced is enough to defeat the 13th Lord. And though there aren't any details, they all wish to try. When they arrive at the labyrinth, the Lord has already escaped. They sync up with their children, powering them up and giving them sweet mecha suits. Inside the cave, Itsuki and Mana regain their bearings. Mana gives him a Viagra potion by mistake and quickly gives him the healing potion instead. Itsuki emerges from the cave and joins the maidens in fighting against the Lord. However, Alfie protects Itsuki from being hit by a laser and she is mortally wounded. She is satisfied to have fulfilled her role as a star child and is happy for all the time she and Itsuki have spent together. Itsuki kisses her and she fades into stardust. Itsuki and the maidens pool their powers into their star children, combining them into a single powerful suit of armor around himself. He fires a beam with their collective power, but the Lord shakes it off and reveals its true form. It speaks, saying that he is an impurity born from humanity's ill wishes and darkness. But Itsuki charges at it with a trident, saying his children were born as the hope to save the world. However, Itsuki is ejected from the suit and his star children remain to finish off the Lord. They wave goodbye, thanking him for giving them life. Afterwards, Itsuki and Mahiru decide to go home. The other maidens are sad to see them go, but one by one they all decide to go with them. They all land in the other world and are surprised to see that Mana has become a cute girl. Mahiru grabs Itsuki by the collar, shocked that he laid with a raccoon. Things work out and Itsuki has the much envied harem as he marries all the maidens. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on one of my videos. See you in the next one. Peace.